What is a woman? Well, I'm pretty sure I'm one, and I'm also pretty sure that I haven't slept in days much because I've been wrestling with this question. It's like, how do we, ladies, having established that we don't, have the same criteria for houses as the Kens, explain ourselves? I mean, to ourselves, we're sort of working through a lot of things about how do we describe what we intuit and experience socially to each other, which is very hopeful. But we really, 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 well, no, do we care? I don't know. Do we care about explaining ourselves to the men? Some of the men in some of the necks of the woods that maybe a few of us hang out in online, hi guys, seem to care without caring about what it is that we ladies get up to when it's just us ladies in the room, because they keep telling us that we don't know, right? It's like, we say things like, we have social structure, and they say, no, you don't, you just fight all the time. And we say, we know what we're doing, and they say, no, you're crazy. Well, we thought we'd let you in tonight to learn a little bit more about the female of the species. Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. Are we here? Are we here? Do you see me?
I'm here. I don't see you.
You don't see me. Well, that's Skype's problem. I don't know what to do about that. I'm a voice.
I see your chair.
I'm a voice in your head, but the people can see me. She's not Kilts.
I'm not Kilts. No.
The stress.
I'm sorry. Again, I'm sorry.
The stress of Barbie training.
I know you all want Kilts.
No. The stress of Barbie training finally got to Kilts, and she deputized. And the thing is, it actually makes more sense for Casey to be here because you are also a member of the Social Galactic discussion.
Yes, I was.
The great FSSH discussion that I may have had.
Is there such a thing?
We've been told. Well, so we did our Matt Walsh tribute, right? And it's like, what is a woman, right? It's like, what is a woman? Well, yeah. I've made notes, right? It's like this is a hard topic, right? So I actually, because I can't, how could I possibly talk about being a woman off the top of my head? I don't know. Do I know? Do I know what being a woman is? Do you?
I'd have to think about it.
Okay, off the top of your head, and don't worry about looking at my chair that you can't see me on camera. Just
I'm not looking at your chair.
Just like I'm
not there.
Fine. This will help you concentrate on this incredibly difficult question, which is, what is a woman? Did you notice any of the answers that we got? Well, so, I mean, there was a lot of claims out there. And just to be fair to those not intimately involved in the deep, confines of the internet where unauthorized TV runs our social media conversation. So it's like we've got two audiences here. We've got our YouTube audience, which is, I suppose, our outward facing performance, right? And then our unauthorized TV audience, which is our inward facing audience. So we have, sort of dual directions here. And those of you who are still only in YouTube and not in unauthorized, come subscribe to Logos and Tolkien on Unauthorized TV, and you can join the chat, which I'm Nimmeister says obviously. I hope so. I hope something's obvious today. That Unauthorized has a social media subscription only platform. It's terribly exclusive. That you only can join by invitation once you've subscribed to Unauthorized TV. Although if you subscribe to Unauthorized TV, you get in the video chat anyway, right? But there's a yet further deep secret space where, well, I don't know what kind of conversations usually go on in Social Galactic. Do you hang out there a lot?
I do hang out there occasionally. I usually just lurk unless something really catches my eye, and then I'll leave a few comments. So I've actually enjoyed quite hearing Vox talk about the social sexual hierarchy. The male one, the only one that kind of prompted this discussion today. So yeah, I've enjoyed listening to that. I thought about the female one because other people had asked him that question before, and he said, no, it doesn't apply. And he's kind of right. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply at all. But we do have our own. And that's what I've enjoyed watching the discussions happened over the past couple of days and contributing a bit of it. There's yeah. Well, this will shock no one. Yes, men and women are very different.
We are? No.
Yes. I know.
It's terrible
shocking,
to think.
But accept it.
Okay, so what I hear there is you lurk.
I lurk a lot. Yeah.
I'm happy. So I do too, right? That I have a very high and exalted status in Social Galactic, simply because when it was set up as the platform that it accompanied Unauthorized TV, I was given Paragon status, which I find hilarious because it says Paragon. I've got a little green badge, right, for being Paragon.
I have no status.
Well, what's funny about it to me is that little green badge in Paragon. And guys, I apologize. One of the things that came with that is I can post longer posts than people who are subscribed at a different level, right? So there's it's a very hierarchical.
Yes, I'm cheap.
So you're cheap. So you can only write like Twitter-sized posts, right? And mine, unfortunately,
yes, it's like 220.
How much?
200. I think it's 220 or 180. I might be mixing that up with Twitter. Yeah, something like that. Well, it forces me to be pithy, which is anybody who's ever talked to me for 2 seconds knows that's a good.
Yes, you do. You do seem to be trying to hog this conversation when it's clearly my room. Women never do that either. Anyway, so I found out. So my posts typically, I mean, what I usually advertise in Social Galactic is the fact of our streams. Right? Hi guys, show up, please. Come hang out. We're doing this in our community, right? But lurking and reading, and of course when Vox lost his Google platform for his blog, he moved the comments on his blog over to Social Galactic too. So if you want the Vox Populi posts that he puts on his blog discuss in SG, if you ever read those, means come here, right? Come to Social Galactic. So you and I both been lurking for some time. What
for quite some time.
What do ladies do when they lurk?
We're very judgmental.
But what are we judging? Are we simply ignoring the streams of pictures and the dad jokes? I'm telling you, the dad jokes on Social Galactic are great. I actually
like
one
them,
of the what do you get when you what would it be? What would Iron Man and Silver Surfer be if they worked together? Wait, no, I'm mistelling it. They're alloys.
Oh yeah, that's right. See, it's interesting. The answer is alloys, and the woman says ironing board.
Oh, ironing board. That's good. The alloys, and of course, since we're my brain is.
That's a mom joke.
I'm completely obsessed with alchemy right now. I read that this is Christo Bear's dad joke, and I was like, "Yay, that's great!" And then somebody else comes in and is like, "I should slap you for that," and I'm like, "This is so fun, right?" It's like No, the boys' space.
Yeah.
It's like it's clearly mainly a boys' club. There are boy jokes. There's dad jokes. There's comments on Vox's blog. Yes, you guys, we watch. That's the horrible, terrifying, true thing that women do when we lurk.
Watch, pay attention, listen, learn, yeah, and judge. Yeah.
I'm not judgy. Am I judgy?
No, but I am. So
the problem is I'm a professional judger. I grade people for a living. That's what they pay me to do at the university. Grade. Yeah, so I judge. I judge you.
And I do it gratuitously. I don't get paid at all.
It's a community service you're giving. That's clearly it. Yes, it's a community service. You're judging. Okay, so we watch, we judge, we pay attention to, I don't know what. What do we pay attention to?
Oh gosh, besides the specific topics, for
maybe
myself,
topics.
Tone.
We might care about topics.
Tone, which is really weird. I just thought about that when you asked it. I tend to watch the conversations and see the tone and try to figure out what's going on behind the statements. Does it make any sense? Maybe I'm over analytical. I don't know.
No, you're
possible.
A woman.
Okay. but I repeat myself. Right?
Yes. Yeah. But I repeat myself. So in our comments, we have live chat. Hi, Fat. Cheers, Fats in the chat. And Christian Hauser says, SG is where we go to annoy Vox. Well, you may, but you're a guy, right? I don't know what Nibmeisters say. It's like nobody's confessing to what else he does in the chat. We go there to annoy Vox. Well, I did that this week. Really well. Do you know what Vox called me?
Probably something he's called me before too.
Oh, no! I get to be called retarded more than once, right? Seriously, I should have kept a list, right? But I think there was one point where it was pretty. I even posted it in my Telegram. I was so happy. Called retarded by Vox. Yes. Because I don't even know.
Put it right next to your Paragon badge.
Ooh, I could because well, we had speculation, right? We lurk, we watch, we listen, we pay attention, we consider who talks to whom.
Mm-hmm.
Who seems to the Mosaic Arc has discussed this before when we read through the Sigma game description of the men's hierarchy, the socio-sexual hierarchy. It's like we know what alphas are, we know what bravos are, we know what deltas are, yay dads, we know what gammas are. I don't think we got down through the rest of them, omega and lambda and sigma and things like that. Maybe we talked about sigma, Vox, but why would we talk about Vox? Because like, who cares? Have I hung out with Milo enough? Who cares, right? Okay, so we consider and watch the relationships and can see who's on the top.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, we watch relationships. We're always looking for it. That must be the tone. Yeah, that I look at when I'm reading people's comments.
It's nice when the guys joke together, don't you think? There's bantery
is.
Like when the ally joke came through and one guy said it and the other one's, I ought to slap you for that. I thought that was hilarious. I love slapstick. You know how hard my mom and I laughed watching Home Alone? Both of them.
Oh, really?
So funny. Who knew that I actually knew. Slapstick is great, right? And the thing is, like, Home Alone, it's really violent. These guys get hit in the heads with irons and bricks.
Oh yeah. It's like old Bugs Bunny or Roadrunner. It's crazy.
It's hilarious. Okay, so guys, we like you.
True.
So there's that. And then, well, it's a very boy space. I'd say Social Galactic is, for the most part.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so when Social Galactic wonders about women, right? And these are some of the things that came up when I started posting about stuff. And I think it was because, as we said, we were doing research for Vox, right? We're a community service here. If he's talking about the way the men interact and the women, we have an understanding of what we do. The men seem not to appreciate that. Maybe they don't study us enough. Do you think?
I think that's a distinct possibility. Yeah, but my opinion is they just like things a little more simple, which is why the SSH works so well, because it gives them definite parameters people fit into, and women are more fluid than that. And so, yeah, I don't think they particularly want to discuss the nuance of female relationships and hierarchies, because it could honestly, we would drive anybody crazy.
Well, it is true. It's kind of hard.
It is hard. Yeah. I mean, we've been discussing the female sexual social hierarchy for what, a week now?
A whole week. They started this alpha game stuff back in a decade ago. You'd think if it was simple to figure out, they'd have done it sooner. Oh, I think actually Vox did figure it out a long time ago. You just hadn't written the book yet. But I don't know. I mean, a week, is that really a long time?
We're not. No, it's not. But I was thinking we were not running out of things to talk about, and I don't think we ever would unless we put a limit on ourselves and said, "Okay, change the topic." Because I mean, women's circles, spheres, hierarchies, they're so fluid and they're so dependent on situations and changing situations in the lives of all the women that are in each other's spheres that you could never run out of anything to talk about. It could drive you crazy if you weren't the kind of person that liked talking about that much change. It isn't simple.
If you weren't a woman.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you weren't used to that.
But it's
you weren't used to overanalyzing everything. So like I do.
this attention. So apparently, when I started posting about this in my effort to do research, and I may have asked a few sort of cheeky conversation starters, right? Like, the premise being quite regularly that the woman at the top of the female socio-sexual hierarchy, if there were one, which doesn't exist, would be the most beautiful, most desirable woman, because of course she's at the top.
Yeah, you're at the top for different reasons.
Well, and then Vox was asking me, but you need a number of sexual partners that she would have, and I said one.
Oh my God, yeah. One, if any, yeah.
And I thought I made a fairly clear argument about that. It's because she gets to be the pickiest. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
And then I wanted to set up an example for this. So I said, well, what about Arwen, right? How many sexual partners did she have before she married Aragorn, the King of Gondor, right? And 0. Mm-hmm. And then there were some others in the middle, like all the elves in Rivendell and all the elves in Middle Earth, except her husband, her brother, and her brothers and her father, or Aragorn himself before he was King of Gondor. This got hundreds of comments. It was
yeah.
I can imagine. And the sweetest one was, "How dare you!" I mean, they say actually, it's like, but please don't do that with Arwen, not Arwen. Don't sully her. And I'm like, okay, do you understand what you guys are saying? Some people got it completely right. I think some of the older gentlemen got where I was going.
Yeah, it was a perfect example, right? Because she's beautiful and virtuous and the ideal. Right, like he must be for men what Aragorn is for women. We look at him the same way.
Well, I was thinking it's like if Aragorn fits an alpha, which I think he does, as very desirable and leader of men.
Yes,
commands the room, whether as Strider or Aragorn. How many sexual partners did he have? Well, I mean, the answer is, of course, as many as he wants.
Right.
And I mean, that I did say that with the most beautiful woman is as many as she wants. But why are you assuming what she wants if she's like literally the most beautiful woman in Middle Earth, so beautiful that she's mistaken for her ancestress, who was the most beautiful woman on Earth in Middle Earth, as beautiful as her grandmother Galadriel. why would she go with anybody other than the King of Gondor? And not even the, not even Aragorn before he's King of Gondor. And so I think somebody said, oh, she would wait because her father was, there with his elf shotgun to make sure that Aragorn and she didn't get up to anything. And I'm like, does she value herself so little that she's thousands of years old. She can wait a little bit.
Right. Yeah. She's cultivated patience.
But the sweetest thing I learned from all of that was how defensive the men were of her.
I think it's adorable.
Which I
think it's wonderful.
Beautifully proved my point.
Yeah.
Right? Not only is she going to go with the absolute top, the other men don't think they should come anywhere near her. And it's horrifying to them to think that they might, or that anybody else might. They want her to marry the king.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It was very sweet. Anyway, so that's close parentheses. That for me, I was actually trying to figure out what the question was to a certain extent, because there were certain claims that had been made that I thought were confusing. For example, that women have no hierarchy. And I'm like, how do you mean hierarchy, right? It's like, as far as I'm concerned, hierarchy is something you apply to angels, which Pseudo-Dionysius very clearly described in the celestial hierarchy. And I say, there's seraphim and cherubim, seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, principalities, virtues, powers, angels, archangels, angels. There are 9 of them, right? And the thing that Pseudo-Dionysius says very clearly in his understanding of this hierarchy of angels, which are, like actual orders, military orders of these hosts of heaven, is the top angels, the seraphim and cherubim, gain the properties of the lower ones, right? So the lowest angels are the messengers that we encounter typically as human beings. And then the others have different roles up the hierarchy. And it's circular, right? It's like they orbit around the divine, at least in all the imagines. So pyramid hierarchies, I don't get. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, they're very earthly, right? Because they're grounded.
Yeah, very good point.
So there are similarities in that they each have different jobs, and one is definitely higher than the other on the order of the types of tasks that they would be responsible for. But I'm just imagining a pyramid on the ground, like it's very structured, but it's very militaristic.
So there's there's 2 models already then. It's like there's the earthly brick pyramid structure, which has a this imagery is quite present in Draco Alchemicus, don't you know?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Squaring the circle.
Right?
And it's
squaring the circle, the spheres. Yeah. And yes, the spheres and the pyramids and
This suggests to us ladies of the Dragon Common Room and the poetic exercise of Draco Alchemicus that everything's connected, which
it is,
which is what we do as poets. But we've been describing how we do it in the social media context of studying people and finding connections and enjoying particular kinds of interactions with people. But the pyramidal earthly square hierarchy, right? Because pyramids have square base.
Right.
And then the wheel-like angelic hierarchy, which if you take Dante, which I one of my posts I was asking, I had a very good diagram drawing of Dante's imagined structure, and Social Galactic people have been reading Dante because Castelia Library has published a beautiful leather edition of it. So
nice.
I'm really sorry. I don't have room on my shelves to like add the leather versions of the books I have. So I basically have like bad paperbacks from Penguin of a lot of these books. But
me too.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get the Dante leather bound, and I didn't hit purchase quickly enough. that you know, I put that up and I was saying, like, this is the spheres with the spheres of heaven, with the angelic spheres, with the like pyramids embedded in it, because you got the purgatorial tower of the mountain that the penitent sinners have to climb, you know, ascend in their trials to, you know, get to the earthly paradise. And then there's another kind of pyramid structure, which is the ranks of the saints in heaven. Then at the very center of Dante's pyramid whirling spherical is Mary.
Yeah.
It's like this complete integrated earthly and heavenly hierarchy of souls and angels, and Our Lady is literally at the center of all of that. Within, you know, she's framing through the incarnational understanding the whirling reality of the Godhead. And yeah, so I think about that one a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe I don't just think in pyramids.
You know, I was thinking is, you know, okay, so the pyramid is very grounded, and it's got a definite concrete at the bottom up to the highest, which is supposed to be closest to heaven, right? So for the pharaoh, hierarchy is still a hierarchy, but they're constantly encircling, you know, surrounding the throne of God. So I just thought angels, they're neither male nor female, and so they have this militaristic hierarchy, and yet they're circular and they move, they're fluid like females. I just thought of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's this wheel, right? It's like, if you just think it's this giant wheel imagery of movement, of motion, right? And that the image of the Godhead is basically the rainbow throne, but the rainbow throne is circular too, because that's rainbows are, right? If you see them, the airplane, you see they're circular,
right?
And medieval artists understood that. So when Dante in his poem sees the throne, he sees the circle. And it's this whirling rainbow of the Trinity.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he put that, I mean, obviously he never flew in a plane. So how did he think of a circular rainbow? I wonder if you see them on the ground like that too.
They knew it. They knew it in the 13th century. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, Dante, I've been working on a text that Dante he probably learned directly from the author of the text, because the author of the text was a Franciscan in Florence at the convent of Santa Croce, where Dante studied. I mean, yeah, we know Dante was there, right, listening to disputations and such. And this Franciscan, yeah, I know, it's so cool. This Franciscan Servus Sanctus is writing this giant description of Mary and all of her all of the creatures that show her, right? So there's this incredible hierarchy of creatures that reveal her, and one of them is the rainbow, and he talks about the circular. That they knew it was like they had really great optics in the Franciscan studies, gross test, and they're reading Aristotle, and so it's this very highly both physical and spiritual structure that Dante is describing.
Fascinating. I mean, it's mind that a mind of, well, all of their minds in the Renaissance fascinate me, but for Dante to absorb all of that and then write a work of fiction that lasts for centuries based upon everything that he soaked in listening to these people, it just reminds me of, he's like Mozart.
Yes.
Right. But for writers, it's incredible.
And he's putting, so, and this just to say, when we say we're studying the interactions in the social media conversation, it's like, and then it ramifies out, right? It's like Dante studied all this. It's like the Divine Comedy is like the social media of his day, when he's studying all of his friends and enemies and right, and judging them.
Yeah. Very judgy.
He's very judgy. And he puts some of them in hell and some of them in purgatory, and then it's like this hierarchy in heaven. And the single most important thing about the hierarchy of heaven is it's like through the spheres of the planets. So from the moon through, in their understanding, the Earth is geocentric, right? So it's the moon, and then Mercury, Venus, Mars,
Right.
Jupiter, Saturn, right? And
Mm-hmm.
those outer rings, like as it were, it's like inner and outer. It's like flips inside out. It's very interesting. The ones in the moons are the furthest from the Godhead, but they're still in heaven, and so they accept their relationship to God, right? It's like they understand that the Mary belongs at the center, and that there are all of these other ranks in between that are appropriate to their level as sanctity, even though they're all saved, right? So they're all there in heaven. So this is beautiful hierarchy. And there's a woman at the center of that. And then but the first souls that Dante speaks to in the outer one are also women.
Oh, interesting.
Who seem okay with their place. Not in the middle, right? So
Right. Only one in the middle.
only Mary gets to be in the middle. I've said this before. It's like they're all my blog post about it. It's like Mary in the middle like stabilizes the whole thing. That there's this magnificently beautiful, stable hierarchy, if in fact it's founded on virtue.
Oh, right. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, she's the center and centers everything else.
Right. As opposed to the hierarchy in hell where it's chaos, right? Although, I mean, there are all the different rings and circles and things like that, but that when Dante's thinking about hierarchy, he's not just thinking about it as a military phenomenon or a diagram of ranks. It's this incredible multi-layered appreciation of social and spiritual interrelationships.
I just thought of screw tape letters and his Lewis's descriptions of hell. Kind of sounds, yeah. There's a definite hierarchy there that he captured there. He must have gotten that from Dante, but yeah.
Oh yeah, Lewis. I mean, these guys know their poetry.
Yes, I'm sure.
And Lewis was actually in The Discarded Image, one of his more popular little books. He describes this whole structure, right? The discarded image he talks about is the structure of the cosmos that's hierarchical, right? It's like this is so. To me, when I hear hierarchy, this is what happens, right? I hear orders of cosmos, right? Order of creation. Ordered, right? Structured, ordered. Everything belongs in this beautiful system. Apparently, I'm incapable of understanding that.
I'm sure you just made a good guess.
Because I'm a woman. In the conversation that came up, I was like, a lot of claims out there. What is a woman? I say, incapable of forming stable hierarchies. In our sinful state, probably, but men too, right? I mean, that's for me. It's like the gamma is in the social sexual hierarchy of the men is the destabilizer. They kick them out. Yeah. They don't like the men that don't play in the hierarchy. So, if women form stable hierarchies, we must have mechanisms for kicking people out.
Well, I would say we do. I'm just stuck on this idea of this. Sorry, my head flew right out again.
So we've got this sort of problem of what is a hierarchy that we've been talking through, right? It's like there is this kind of system, and that there is a virtuous system which is by definition stable because it's focused on God.
Yes.
And the souls understand their appropriate relationship to God. And I mean, maybe to add this to that the hierarchy, the heavenly hierarchy doesn't include everybody, because not everybody died in proper relationship to God, and so some of them are in hell. And then the others that die repentant end up in purgatory, but then they have to climb this other, tiered structure thing to get to the heavenly hierarchy, ultimately having, done penance.
Mm-hmm.
So hierarchy seems really judgy.
Seems very feminine, huh?
Ooh. Okay. One of the things that what the people talked about was how, and I'm blending with some stuff I read on this other manosphere site, the red pill something. Anyway, the manosphere conversation, saying women have no hierarchy. We don't understand how to form structures or anything like that. We just we behave like crabs in a bucket.
Well, that's absurd. Crabs in a bucket. I mean, that's hell he's describing.
Yes.
Right?
A free-for-all of backstabbing
down.
and manipulation.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of offices I worked in, which were mostly male-dominated, but whatever.
But if we get into actual modern bureaucracy structures, we'll never get out tonight. But so say that one, that women don't understand stability, and two, that we behave like we're always viciously cutting each other out.
And we understand stability and rely upon it very heavily all throughout history. We need it because we have children. And those children need that. So we're hyper aware of the need for stability.
Where did these ideas come from then, that we don't know these things? We're told we don't play well together. Well,
not always, no. It's not as straightforward as the way men deal with each other. The way women deal with each other is not straightforward at all. It's a lot more subtle, and it's a lot of trying to, well, if you're a good queen or in the good queen's court, it's a lot of trying to not step on other people's feelings and not be dismissive of them, because we're very intuitive. And again, this is all related to the need for stability, stable homes, stable families, stable neighborhoods.
So I hear you suggesting we're as vicious as we are in these descriptions because we need stability.
Yes, we need it. We do need stability, and we do need, and we understand the men need this too, especially in the home. We need calm, so we try to keep that. We try to keep the baby calm. We try to keep the kids calm and not fighting. We try to keep a calm home for a husband, so that, because we know how hard he works. This is traditionally throughout history, this is what women did. And so I would say, yeah, we're hyper aware of the need for order. We just see more of it in the micro level that the men maybe don't see or don't look for.
Well, they're clearly, so to be fair to them, they're clearly noticing some behaviors, right? The sort of the crabs in the bucket and the backstabbing.
No, definitely.
I mean, that one of the more interesting, confusing claims to me was women only make pecking orders, men make hierarchies. But then in one of the manosphere posts, I found that pecking order was one of the ways that they were describing themselves as together, because they know each other's relative relation, which is apparently the pecking order. But they say theirs are stable and ours aren't, because they know where they belong in relation to each other.
Oh, I agree. It's simpler for them to understand, to navigate. I mean, the whole thing about the pecking order in chickens is that's actually the rooster that sets it, right? I mean, everybody's seeing pictures of the rooster pecking at a hen going, lay on that egg better, you're not doing it right.
Well, now, okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. One of my favorite books growing up was Flossie and Bossy, and I'm pretty sure the chickens, I don't. I have never studied chickens, so I don't know. I only know dogs in any sort of detail. And the dogs that I know are pet dogs, so it don't have pack hierarchies. They just have playgroup interactions. Yeah. Park interactions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they were, you wouldn't see that in a park interaction. If they were in a pack, probably. I only know this from all the many videos that I like to watch, documentaries and things. But yeah, there's definitely an alpha in the dog packs. That's, it's funny. Cats are associated with women because of the way they act. They're very sneaky, right? So I think and the men always identify with the dogs more because they're very simple to understand. And I think it's valid. It is very valid. Women, we spend a lot more time looking at minutia and acting that way in our interactions with each other. And again, I think it all goes back to, keeping an eye on children, on many things all at once. And I think that carries over into the way we think about the world in general and each other.
I'm guessing though we're going to need to describe this more specifically. Otherwise, this just sounds like we're making excuses for ourselves. Like,
I understand that too.
Of course we know what we're doing, but you just can't see it, right? That unfortunately.
Yeah, I would honestly, in their defense, I wouldn't accept that either. I wouldn't accept that.
Okay, so we're here to help,
yeah.
right? So
exactly.
What I was amused by, and managed to inadvertently, because I'm a girl, take over the Social Galactic chat without really meaning to, because I just got so excited and I kept hashtagging FSSH, the Female Socio-Sexual Hierarchy, and then because I had this Paragon status and could make longer posts, and I may have said, I tried to break my stuff up so it wasn't wall text and stuff like that. But anyway, at one point, it's like I've been told over and over again, including by the leader, that this FSSH doesn't exist, and I'm retarded for even thinking that I should be able to describe it. I mean, maybe I was trying to get the conversation going, and so I was going, "Oh, it's so cool! I figured this out. How about this?" I wrote this post. Since everybody seems to want to know. Actually, this was the one that started the whole stream of the week, right? Since everybody seems to want to know. The difference between the male SSH, socio-sexual hierarchy, and the female SSH is that everybody talks openly about the men's rankings relative to each other, right? The guys talk about it openly with each other all the time. But if you mention the women's rankings, the woman at the top will have to kill you.
That's impolite.
What? Unless, of course, she is the Virgin Mary, as we've described, in which case she prays for everyone. Hashtag FSSH, right?
Yeah. That's pretty straightforward to me.
What?
That's pretty straightforward to me.
Well, yeah, so it's like we have some slides to go with the female of the species, right? It's like, why don't women, okay, if we have this claim, and it's not just the prettiest girl at the top, right? If we have this claim that there is such a structure and we know it exists and we're not going to tell you how can we defend the claim that there is such a thing as the structure? Now, then I started thinking, it's like, it raised more questions, right? And I tried using this image of the queen for just queen, right? Because we don't say alpha because that creates overlaps in people's minds with the description of the men. So let's try a different word, queen, right? Because it's
fair enough.
Maybe the role plays differently for the women, so we'll say queen, which then I was told, no, that's still the prettiest woman at the top. And I'm like, okay, no, because oh gosh, no.
I'm having flashbacks, memories of the exact opposite of that. No, they can be, to borrow a Miloism, they can be some real ham beasts at the top of that hierarchy. And a lot of it's, they set the tone for whatever group they're in, and it's not always good, and it has nothing to do with their attractiveness to men. Right. So it's perfectly fair and valid for the men to say, this men's sexual hierarchy exists somewhat independent of the women. Right.
Right.
But so you can't compare them. But the same thing is true for the women, so the men are looking at this saying they can't be a female social sexual hierarchy because, well, I mean, I think the discussion came up where they were comparing the alpha with what we're calling the queen, and it had to do with sexual attractiveness, and it doesn't.
Right.
Because it has a different function. right? I mean, the women will look up to her or they'll fear her, one or the other. Whereas the men, they would never forever follow an alpha that they feared. I mean, like real fear, like they would just choose another alpha, right? I can't see them. Oh gosh, I can hear male brains exploding right now already.
Well, as you're talking, I'm having trouble with my slides, which are for some reason playing, and I don't want them to.
Oh.
I will not loop. No. This is hilarious. They shouldn't advance when I'm not telling them to advance. And yet they are. I can't even control my slides tonight.
Oh.
Okay, I think I calmed them down. My slides, they need to like behave. Just stop it, ladies. Okay, here we go. Now you were talking to their Heathers on screen, right? So
okay.
But then they started up and then it went into some others, and I do actually have a plan in this. See, even ladies, stay still. They seem to be staying still. Say again what you were saying. It's like there's
okay.
the
the female queen has nothing to do with sexual attractiveness to men, right? The male alpha, some of it has to do with the other men underneath him perceiving his sexual attractiveness to women, especially very attractive women, right? But there are other things. I mean, the men will follow an alpha that is, I'm not going to say that they might follow one that instills fear, but I can't see that lasting forever because it has to do with respect. And with the women, respect is an aspect of it. Admiration is an aspect of it. That's very similar to the men, though. What I'm saying is I can't see the men forever following a man who might be destructive to them personally as an alpha. If there were enough men who felt that he was being destructive to them personally, I mean, to borrow military, he'd get fragged. Right. You're out of here. We're going to pick another one. Whereas the queen, because the women's interactions with each other, let's call her the evil queen, as you have, because the women's interactions with her are a lot more subtle and have a lot more to do with manners and emotions, and the court, showing a court was an excellent example of what goes on in groups of women, because they will always pay attention to how people are acting. They'll always pay attention to tone. And so an evil queen can stay an evil queen for a lot longer than an evil alpha can stay an evil alpha and not be replaced, because it's a lot more subtle. And it takes longer for women to catch on because we're very self-critical. And an evil queen will know that, and she'll use it. And she'll use to keep that position. I guess that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, so I'm going back to the men respect a man who can attract women. So in the socio-sexual hierarchy for the men, because the men respect the man who can attract women, that's one of the criterion that they use to follow him.
Yes, I think so. Because they admire it.
Right. Now the women, it's like to play their devil's advocate. It seems to, and like the Heathers, the movie we found a lot of examples in the movies we talked about, right? Heathers and Mean Girls and Barbie. That, although Barbie's a good girl, right? The Heathers and Mean Girls are both obviously about leaders of women's groups that fit the crab bucket image that people have, because they're bitchy and mean to each other, and the Heathers are cutting of everybody else in the school, and the Heather Chandler, saying everybody wants to be me or have sex with me. Yes, that's not what she says, right? And so that seems to suggest, from the men's perspective, if they're looking at that kind of conversation, that the reason she is, which is what she's just said, the queen, is because the men all want to have sex with her.
No, it's because the other girls are afraid of her. They're afraid of what she's going to do to them. Nobody's there to challenge her yet. at the beginning of the movie.
Okay, but let's sit on this for just, they say that the fact that she thinks all the men want to have sex with her is instrumental to her own self-definition of why she's Heather.
Mm-hmm.
But we're saying that's not the case of why she's Heather.
Right.
The men's heads are exploding because they don't get how that can be the case.
No. A woman like that is a threat to other women. Whereas the male alpha who has many sexual partners is an ideal for a lot of men. Shouldn't be, but it is. And that's just I don't want to use the evolution word. I don't believe it either, Vox. Don't worry.
I was told I was innumerate too this week. I've been honored. I've been honored so many times. I know the thing is, I did have the thought, Vox, if you ever listen to me, that he was treating me like a guy, basically going, "That's dumb. Shut up." And I'm like, "No, I've seen Puss in Boots. I know how to do therapy, dog." And I'm just gonna be back. Right. Puss in Boots keeps trying to get rid of the therapy dog too. It doesn't work. So the Heather, the Heather, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? So get us all set up correctly, so we can explain this. Mm-hmm. The Heather must have something the other women want, and she says everybody wants to be me or have sex with me. So and when men hear that, and that seems to be the claim of, in fact, why the women are surrounding her or fearing her, and we're going to say that's not, in fact, the case. Okay. So it's not just the reflection of the top of the male hierarchy or what the male hierarchy sees. There's something else going on, which we need to explain.
Yeah, so when men hear her say that, I mean, when I hear her say that, I'm thinking she sounds like a dude. Right?
Well, actually, Heather's was written by a dude, so it could be.
What's that?
Heather's, the movie, was written by a man, the script.
Whoa, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
and Barbie, confusingly enough, was co-written, right? Go ahead, sorry. No,
Mean Girls was written by a woman, and yeah, that one I thought, I did not like the movie Heathers when I saw it. It was just too cruel. Mm-hmm. And but that's because also the way men joke around with each other, like you said, they'd call each other retard, or worse.
Right.
And you're not supposed to get upset. But if a woman does that to another woman, it's like, what did I do wrong?
Right. The woman in me had some moments this week. Hey, but I practiced, which we're going to talk to you about. Okay, so I also made the claim in the Social Galactic conversation that what I was trying to describe was the queen bee, right? And Clueless, which is a movie that we do need to break down at some point because it's written by Jane Austen, effectively. Yeah, it's Emma.
Emma, right? Yeah.
But Cher in Clueless seems to me to be the exact. It's good. I've got the plaid. Here's Heather in plaid, and now here's Cher in plaid, and Cher in plaid is not the same character as Heather.
Oh no!
Right?
No.
And so I was saying, look, she's bee colored in this outfit, right? This is what I mean when I say she's a bee, and then this didn't help either, right? So I think we need to be brutally specific. All right. For those of you who want to read along, we are now about to visit some deep backstory of Fencing Bear. I am actually Fencing Bear on Social Galactic, and I'm guessing not everybody knows who I am. Hi guys. And this is I will say, everybody who's ever found me on Wikipedia I'm 15 years younger now. Did you notice? Because for ages they were having me born in 1950, and I don't know where they got that number. It's just like she's got to be a boomer. They'll pull it out of the hat, right?
Like, how dare you?
I don't know. I figured if they couldn't get my birth year right, they didn't know much of anything else. Apparently, I mocked them on my academic homepage, which I have to like update to say, you know, guys, I was born in 1965, which you can see if you follow my fencing clue. The categories that I've been fencing in as a veteran, I can't be 15 years older than I am, right? Because they wouldn't let me fence. I actually have to be the age that I say I am, born in 1965, to fence in the categories in the years that I have. And you can look that up on the USFA listings when I was in this age bracket, right? This is one of the others. I will shout outs to, let's see, it was Christo Bear who had the great alloy. Wolf is a brand. Wolf is a brand. Recognized very wisely that maybe when I did provocative things like saying, I figured it out a number, it's diamonds, that was a feint. And maybe I was trying to draw an attack, which worked, and see what your response was to see how I should respond to it. I'm sorry, duh. I'm a fencer.
Yeah.
Which these ladies in this post at the top, in this blog post published September 30th, 2017, are talking about. And this is in the midst of the great furore over my pointing out that one of my colleagues in academia's post about Charlottesville remember 2017? You remember any of this, right? It's like so much has wiped out the memory of what happened in summer of 2017. It's been an eventful past 6 years, right? Seven years, right? There was a giant conversation going on in the medieval community about whether we should say something about whether we were white supremacist or not. This was long before I, got described as being friends with Vox on my Wikipedia entry. Oh my gosh. And I said something which drew some attention. And by September 30th, 2017, there was a petition going around wanting to have me cast out of academia. And there were also a lot of social media posts. Okay, so
how open-minded. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this one was there's a lot of backstory in this, you guys. It's all on my Fencing Bear blog. That this was a group of women. It was actually a group of women. This is why this is all topical to this problem. It was actually a group of women who had found my blog post, 3 Cheers for White Men, which was about how chivalrous men are. Therefore, I was delighted and reassured that you guys were also defensive of Arwen. Good on you, right? That had been my point from the beginning, that men are actually, the reason that women have the power that we do in our society in the West was because men are very gracious to us.
Yes. And we appreciate it.
And we do.
The good ones do. Yeah.
We do.
Like most do.
And the thing is, we really, really, really do. I meant it. I've gotten a lot of flack over the years for that blog posts, among other things, right? This group of women, led by one woman, which there's queens involved here, right? Led by one woman in this social media post, in their feminist Facebook group, a year and a half before this September 30th post, had been talking about my 3 Cheers for White Men post. I came in, said, hi, I'm here. Would you like to talk? I wrote a lot of posts in January 2016 about what I meant by chivalry, what I meant. I do know a little history, maybe.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. I also got asked in Social Galactic this week that I should study more history, and I'm like, oh, please, yes, I'm always up for more history. Absolutely. Great. Tell me more. Oh. I was told about the Navy at that point. I'm like, that's great. Let's read Patrick O'Brien. Yes. Okay. Yes, I get it. And you guys, somebody in our Social Galactic community, or maybe unauthorized, says, if you come for the king, you better not miss On Guard. They came for me. All right. and I blotted out their names because I'm the good witch in this story. I don't understand what fencing has to do with anything, because I've been talking about fencing and how I stayed calm in this whole exchange, right? I'm a martial artist, a girl, but anyway. I don't understand what fencing has to do with anything. I mean, I know she fences, but what does that have to do with any of this? It struck me as reminding us of the boxer of last year's FemFog. Okay, they came after another colleague, a friend of mine who does Anglo-Saxon studies, Alan Franson, who was doing a blog on boxing. He is gay. He is with his lifelong partner. He's retired. This same group of women came after him to get him thrown out of the conversation, and managed to get some of his stuff canceled, like a conference and maybe a festschrift. But he was retired, so it wasn't as directly affecting him as some of this stuff has affected me. So they're saying, I remember the fem fog, right? Because he said we're surrounded by this feminist fog. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think top poster again. Exactly. I can't help wondering if her supposed facility with weapons, supposed. Right, at this point, I had been to the World Championships for veterans at age 51 in Germany, so maybe I have a little facility.
Do I detect a little bit of envy in that comment she made? Supposed
It's
envy?
got two smiley faces. Supposed to be significant. Should DK, the leader of this group, expect a challenge at dawn delivered by a Beanie Baby, or what WTF that is? My avatar is the doll, right? The Fencing Bear doll.
Fencing Bear.
Right? We on social media, we know how to use avatars, right? Well, okay, Fencing Bear was mine. I've since then changed all my profile pics to me, right? But anyway. And anyway, parentheses. And anyway, modern foil fencing ain't no thing. Show up with a rapier and dagger and we'll talk. Yes, I did look her up. I do know who these people are. I covered the names. I know who they are. The person talking there does some historic fencing. Fair enough, right? Okay.
I'd pay to see the bout between.
Well, historic fencing, the broadsword stuff with the foil, no. I mean, it's not dumb.
Riding a bike, come on. You can do it. You can take
here. I got a Beanie Baby here. I got my fire-breathing dragon. I'll just right. Okay. And then this is a third person in the conversation. I keep thinking of Francine and his boxing, and that's my colleague who did the boxing post, right? Mm-hmm. And so I say, okay, I remember, all of these things that I've just told you about, how we ended up in this situation with me writing about Milo, being caught up in this story, and I'm all the time I'm saying I'm basically living this, chronicling what it was like in all of that. And you wonder what fencing has to do with it, right? Well, okay, what does fencing have to do with it? Nothing. My competition year was more or less completely shot, so preoccupied have I been since Worlds with finishing my book and blogging about Milo. And yet everything. It has nothing to do with weapons as such, but it has everything to do with competition. It has nothing to do with feeling physically threatened, but it has everything to do with being willing to put oneself at psychological risk. It has nothing to do with proving myself as a woman, but everything to do with training myself to be strong enough to take the worst that other women can throw at me, including myself. After all, as the poet once famously put it, for the female of the species is more deadly than the male. That's Kipling, right? And I talk about all of the speakers in that what we read. They're women. They don't seem to be any sport fencers, but one had that experience with rapier and dagger. And you thought I was just a silly teddy bear. I admit I was a little surprised by all of what happened, right? But both in my fencing practice and in my mythological study, I had a story that occurred to me in this setting. I'm reminded of a scene from Terry Pratchett's Lords and Ladies, and this is there's a second post from them. They consider I probably don't know anything about Tolkien. Oh no, they're saying one of our actually most important senior scholars who writes about Tolkien and taught the Tolkien class where I was an undergraduate, doesn't know anything about Tolkien, but okay, we'll move on. So to Terry Pratchett and his witches stories. Yes, I know this one's, the cover that I'm showing now is not Lords and Ladies, but it shows all three witches, so that was more useful. The cover that I'm showing right now is Witches Abroad, which is hilarious. They save the princess from marrying the frog. Okay. But Lords and Ladies, right? And Lords and Ladies is based on Midsummer Night's Dream. So all of it is layered into, you know, the mechanicals performing the play, and the witch, the elf queen, and they show up at the play and so forth. Okay, so I'm reminded of a scene from Terry Pratchett's Lords and Ladies in which the elf queen is attempting to shame Magritte Garlick into submission. The elf queen has kidnapped Magritte's soon-to-be husband, the Fool, and Magritte has sallied forth wearing armor under her wedding dress to rescue her man. It's involved why she ends up in armor, but it works, right? Before getting engaged, Magritte had served as the younger witch of the not-quite coven of Lonker, in which she was subject to the steely eye of Granny Weatherwax and the ribald teasing of Nanny Ogg. And if you guys haven't read Terry Pratchett, you just are really in need of some more reading. Nanny and Granny are in the foreground of this drawing, and Magritte's, you know, careening in on her broomstick behind. Nanny Ogg and Granny will always wear the appropriate black with the hat. Magritte wears drapey willy stuff and occult jewelry.
That's a great image.
I hid mine, okay, right? Anyway, okay, so in Granny's formulation, Magritte was a wet hen, too soppy and sentimental ever to be a proper witch, not to mention bring down the glamorous elf queen, right? But when Magritte shows up to challenge the elf queen, both Granny and Nanny have been overpowered. They're in Elfland, and they can't, Granny and Nanny, the older witches, can't attack the elf queen. She's paralyzed them in various ways, right? And it's up to Magritte to defeat her. Magritte makes the first move and grabs the elf queen, whom she discovers to be almost weightless, physically insubstantial. But then the queen launches her counterattack, exploding into Magritte's uncertainty like a nova. Quote, if you want a description of what we do to each other, buckle up.
Yeah.
She was nothing. She was insignificant. She was so worthless and unimportant that even something completely worthless and exhaustively unimportant would consider her beneath contempt. In laying hands upon the queen, she truly deserved an eternity of pain. She had no control of her body. She did not deserve anything. She did not deserve a thing. The disdain sleeted over her, tearing the planetary body of Magritte into pieces. She'd never be any good. She'd never be beautiful or intelligent or strong. She'd never be anything at all. Self-confidence? Confidence in what? The eyes of the queen were all she could see. All she wanted to do was lose herself in them. And the ablation of Magritte Garlick roared on, tearing at the strata of her soul, exposing the core. She bunched up a fist and hit the queen between the eyes. Ladies, you've been there, right? And that's so Pratchett's genius, right? And the thing is, with all of these witches stories, he's dealing with this female hierarchy, right? Because he's playing with the way the older witches, and spoiler alert, Granny is a virgin, which features in, I think it's this way. Yes, because the queen has a unicorn that breaks through the standing stones, and it's going around killing people. And Granny's the only one that can capture it because she's a virgin. Which we get some backstory because she didn't let Crilly the wizard catch her, right? Nanny never ran fast enough. Right? And so she has tons of children and husbands, and you know, it keeps her daughters-in-law in terror, cleaning her house all the time and such, right? So they're playing off of two different archetypes of old woman, right? The crone, which you never say in Granny's hearing, and the mother, right? But Magret's now going to get married and be the that one goes. That's another story, right? They rejig the hierarchy again after that, right? But there is a hierarchy, but it's also a set, right? It's like they actually need all three of them to work. And Magret beautifully is shown. It's like she's there to get her husband back from the woman who stole him. And the point about the queen is when she picks her up, when she touches her and she picks her up and she's like weightless. Do I have that passage? Yeah, okay, no, I don't. The point about the queen is she projects a glamour so that all of the men see her as incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, but even she did, right? All she wanted to do was get lost in her eyes.
Yes.
She was mesmerized, so even other women would look at her and be like agog, right?
And then Magret sees her. And there's nothing. It's a triangle of a face. It's some bits and bobs of weeds in her hair because she's got flowers and she's a fairy, right? She's the elf queen. She's nothing. It was all glamour. It was all this projection of
no substance,
zero, right? So I mean, there's that. Guys, we're sorry to tell you, it's not just the makeup. I mean, the confidence is one thing, but there is this, what Patrick is beautifully describing with the Elf Queen is this projection of whatever it is that she is. And what's interesting in Barbie, there's a moment when she's sad. I think Margot, what's her name? Robbie, the woman who played Barbie. Margot Robbie. Not Magret. Right. There is a moment when she doesn't look that beautiful in the movie, and it's oddly enough that exact moment when Helen Mirren as narrator says, this is you might not want her having to say she doesn't feel beautiful anymore if you wanted to cast Margot Robbie. And it's like, yeah, right. But in that moment, she doesn't look beautiful. Even for someone as beautiful as Margot Robbie, playing the character beautifully, we don't always look beautiful because there's something else that needs to happen for us to look beautiful.
Yeah. So it's something other than what did they call her? Was she called stereotypical Barbie? Or was it just typical Barbie?
She's stereotypical Barbie, but even stereotypical Barbie played by a real woman who is incredibly beautiful. I mean, this is the funny thing about actresses, right? If you see them out of makeup, do you recognize them? There's whole websites on the internet showing you the stars not in makeup. Or with
there was a part in the Barbie movie where she looks at a very old woman and she says, "You're beautiful." Yeah. And the woman says, "I know." It's very sweet. But yeah, obviously she was talking about this woman had lived a whole life and had a lot of experiences with it. And that I think the thought was that projected beauty that way and it affected her physical appearance. Now, I mean, I'm seeing an old woman, but I'm also saying, I think she probably was very pretty when she was young. But her confidence was there.
But don't you see that in? I mean, we made the claim a week ago. My base claim is Barbie makes all of the Barbies beautiful, right? And shock horror. Some of them are fat. Some of them are not women. Some of them are, they're different sizes and shapes and stuff like that. But they're all equally beautiful. It's like, yes, because Barbie makes them that way. In the same way she projects herself as beautiful, right? It's like the beauty is this, and this can work for Mary too, right? But Our Lady is as beautiful as she is. I'm going to cry. Because she projects it for all of us.
Yeah.
Cry. And the Elf Queen doesn't, right? She's glamour for herself and her, stealing Magret's husband and enslaving all of the people. I mean, they want the lords and ladies that they do the play that the mechanicals put on to project this glamour illusion of the theater. Very, very telling. Pratchett's is such a genius. The glamour of the theater means that the elves are able to, they're invited in, right? And then they take over the town. And then Nanny has to go get, it's really hilarious. You want like socio-sexual hierarchy. And I didn't put this in the stack of pictures. Okay, fine. Nanny has to go to Oberon and wake him up, and you know, he stands up, and they go, "Oh my, he's big," right? Okay, fine. That picture of you on the in the chalk of the giant with the big it's life size, isn't it? That
I've got to read this.
Yes, you do. So
make it sound really interesting.
It's all about the sexual energy throughout all of it, right? It's like everything is about the sexual energy that all of these characters understand as power. And that it's like when the elf queen is, you know, blasting through Margaret's being and then gets to the core. I say, back a lifetime ago, before I'd ever made the medal round at a national veteran event, I was in tears yet again, talking with my friend Ed. "You are too nice," he told me. "You need to be willing to win." The taxi driver picked me up last Sunday to take me to New York, where I had heard some of my opponents were planning to protest the seminar I was scheduled to give, told me much the same thing. I was fired up and anxious and ready to fight, but he looked straight at me and said, oh my God, I can't read this without crying. He did. This really happened. I'm in this taxi. I'm about to go to New York, and this group of people on the social media are trying to disrupt a seminar that I was scheduled to give at my alma mater, Columbia, right? He looked at me, the taxi driver looked at me and said, "You find it hard to be the one who has to be mean."
Yeah. Yeah, that's most women. Yeah.
I hate mean girls. I'm reading now. I hate the gossiping and backbiting and the sneering about how ugly other women are. I hate the impulse women seem to feel to bring each other down, to rip and tear at each other's reputation, to slut shame and slander. I hate the preening and the prancing and the bitchiness that seems to be the stuff of women's conversation about other women. I hate the way in which women refuse to compete on the basis of skills, go after each other's souls instead. It's almost worse when academic women do it to each other.
Yep. Social media is very feminine, isn't it? That way.
In that it enables this kind of searing insult. Yes.
Yeah.
Incredibly feminine. Take out their soul. Sneer at them. There's some other blog posts, not in this one. I've forgotten which one, but there's another set where they're talking about how ugly they think I am.
Okay. Are these blind people?
Well, they're looking with lenses for sure, but they're looking with those envy lenses on, and that we do promise to keep unpacking all of this in this episode and future episodes. Why women behave this way to each other? I think we're starting in the social media, social galactic context, and the Sigma Game Substack had a really great guest post today by one of Vox's readers on female solipsism and the way we create wheels and hubs and things like that. We want to talk about that more, but we needed to show you that we understand what you're seeing with the crab fight.
Yeah.
We get it. We've been there a lot. Yeah. Sometimes on social media, sometimes in public, sometimes with people who some of these women I have confronted at conferences since I read this.
Wow.
I thanked them for their papers and said that they taught me things.
I might have used more choice words. But, I'm not judging you.
I know
I'm
you're
just
not.
judging
I know
me.
you're not. I talk in the blog post
No.
I go on. Glamour is strong is the mob, which is where if you're curious, still curious, fencing comes in. And then I talk about. I mean, the point of the fencing bear stuff is being in these bouts was one of the things that losing the bout is one thing, but it's like chess. In that if you lose in a fencing bout, you might as well say goodbye to your self-esteem for the next however long it takes to pass. Right?
Oh,
It is rough. It's like 3 years ago, I quit this sport. This was 2017. So, dramatically, hysterically, and humiliatingly, link to post. When I lost in the direct elimination bout, not once, but twice in the same weekend to less experienced fencers than myself after coming out of the pools, both time in the top 8. I thought I was going to be in the court. And I thought I was going to be in the court in events I still haven't cracked the top in. I've cracked the medals in other layers of things, but not in the one event that I almost made it that day. And then I lost to the person who was seated below me. Everything that the Elf Queen threw at Margaret, I threw at myself. After losing the second of those bouts in 2 days, the pit opened up and all I could see was my utter worthlessness. And then it got worse as I fell in and in and in. Disdain, I knew it. Contempt, I was it. Ugly, I'd never seen anyone uglier, less able to control her emotions, more despicable and humiliating than me. And it was bad. My roommate that was with me that weekend was like, how can you not stop crying? And I'm like, I just can't. It's like just pit opened up right through.
I don't think men understand that this kind of negative self-talk happens inside women's heads a lot. It happens all the time.
We're fighting it constantly.
I don't think they get. Yeah, I don't think they get that. That was a part in the Barbie movie where America Ferrera is giving this speech. She's trying to make Barbie get up and take action. And she's giving the speech about how hard it is to be a woman because all of these things are constantly going on in their heads. And I was watching this with my husband. He said, well, he's watching this. Well, what are they doing this speech for? That's not true. I said, every single day, one of those thoughts goes through my head or another woman's head, at least one of them, at least once a day, right? It's constant negative back talk. And it's very reflective of how we treat each other in this female hierarchy, right? We're constantly,
we know each other's weakness, which is our own.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you're a good person, you don't exploit that. But not every person is a good person. And when women do exploit that, because we're constantly thinking of these things, we're constantly seeing weakness. It really is kind of like it really is like a sparring session if you're in martial arts, which I did a long time ago. Right. You're constantly looking for a weakness, for an entry where you can score a hit or a kick or something. Yes. And it's I never thought about it this way, but yeah, free sparring is very much like the way women think, right? You have to constantly be looking for where you can get in.
Always.
And close in fighting.
Always.
Close in fighting. So you get real close, you get in somebody's face, right? Now I'm talking about how we talk to each other if you're going to be a mean girl, right? You get right in their face and you go right for the weakest spot and you try to make it weaker until they go away, right? And then it's really vicious. Yeah. It's like sparring.
But it's like
martial arts.
You're retarded.
Yeah, that's not a solid hit. Sorry.
Well, I parried it, but and I'm doing that. It's like these are for me doing foil attacks, right? I know what that is. And then I had to learn to be a better fencer. I had to learn to, like my friend Ed that I mentioned, like hit. My husband says that when I go to tournaments, he's like, they love you when you hit them. And I'm like, no, they don't. But I get what he's trying to do for me, which is take away that I don't like to be the mean one. I don't like to be the one that has to, I don't like it, right? Now, this could be, and this is I think in the capacity of like who becomes a queen in these situations. I have in my Barbiness, convinced, and I'm a teacher too, right? And I want you all to, like, you write that beautiful poem that we posted for Halloween, right? kilts, right? Her magnificent articles on the Gab Christian series, right? Mel, who has done all of our beautiful video editing, right? The opening and closing of our videos here, all of the editing that she's done for our pigeon clips, all of us writing our poetry together. I'm gonna cry now. Why wouldn't I want that? And of course, what I'm starting to sense, like the women in academia, and I do have some more layers here, right? They were just coming after me in this. I'm starting to, in our studies of the socio-sexual hierarchy stuff, appreciate why they had some of the responses that they did. And this will come into our talking about wheels and hubs and the model that we've been given. We're still dealing with queens in this in this episode, right? But
yeah,
I am feeling more that I understand better the kinds of things they said. I mean, one of the strangest ones when they got mad at me was, you never came to any of the blog meetups. And I'm like, what? There were blog meetups?
There were blog meetups?
Why would I wasn't even blogging about medieval history. I was mainly blogging about fencing. I don't think I needed to talk to you guys about medieval history because I was talking about fencing. And, I started talking about history more recently in this saga, but I hadn't actually been. They said, you weren't part of our group. How dare you? Yeah. Now I go sort of go,
interesting.
Okay. So, and we saw them in the little exchange there. It's like, she doesn't know weapons. We know weapons. Oh yes. And we took that up, that other guy who knew weapons, but why is she talking about weapons? Right. It's like, I'm starting to, as a fencer, and as an observant of these interactions, to get a better sense of what kind of bout's going on. In this context, I was mainly learning how to be Magra and just be able to not be absorbed in the glamour.
Yeah.
I talk about how writing's like this too. Writing is hard. It takes you out into the wilderness and confronts you with all your inadequacies. It's the elf queen telling you over and over and over again, you suck.
Yeah, your inner elf queen.
Your inner elf queen gets you as a writer too. It is extremely tempting to take it out on others, to blame them for your not being able to find the thing that you most want to say. But the elf queen is insubstantial, and the glamour is in part of our own making, our willingness to succumb to the lies about what it means to create. I talk about how I started the blog and I was trying to get over some of my concerns, and that this was the context that I first started writing about Milo, because one of the things that had happened to him in 2016 was Trickly-Puff's response, when she's like, take your hate speech off this campus, take your hate speech off this campus, right? And I wrote a post about a few words of advice and like, what would you do instead, right? Because I've been there. I know what it means not to be able to sit with your emotions. I know what it means not to be able to find that sweet spot between anxiety and boredom, which I talk about in the Twiggly-Puff post. I know what it means to confront the elf queen, all the previous scholarship in our field, and have it tell you that nothing you write will ever be as insightful, profound, well-received, important as what older scholars have said. I've been there. Trust me, you get better at it. You can train for this to a certain extent. I've been there with the devil bearing down on me, telling me to burn my own book.
I'll bet.
And I've been there with the other girls telling me I suck and believing them. Now, one thing that helps to understand about Margaret in this is Nanny and Granny have been like hazing her constantly through several previous stories, making her make the tea, telling her she's a wet hen and stuff. So they're kind of playing a little more masculine because they're witches, right? They're kind of playing a more masculine training on her. And she persists, right? She's going to be the therapy dog. She's just going to, and the thing is, she is kind of therapy dog in this sense that this is the Puss in Boots therapy dog character. She is just cheerful and keeps trying, right? It's like she's got all of this occult jewelry, which is ridiculous and never works. At one point, I think is it in this story? Yes, she's thrown all of her occult jewelry in the river because she's going to go off and be married, and she's going to be queen instead, which is another layer that we're going to unpack. And I think then we may to be continued with the rest of the things I thought we were going to talk about. This has been good, right? We getting it out there. Benefit of live stream, you can come back. That she's decided that she's not going to be a witch anymore and going to be concentrated on being queen, like the queen. And then the elf queen steals her husband during the theater performance. And so she has to, I think she puts the armor on. Oh, she gets the armor on because that's the only thing that protect her from the elves that are like killing people otherwise. And so she finds the armor and she puts the armor on, and then she puts her wedding dress on over it. And she goes to confront the elf queen. And so at this point, she's not telling herself anymore that she's a witch. She's just wants her husband, right? So this, I ended the post. I've been there with the other girls. Tell me I suck at believing them. You did well there, girl. Annie says to Margaret after she battles the elf queen to a draw. Didn't think you had it in you to survive an attack like that. It had fairly had me whittling myself. I've had practice, said Margaret darkly. So have I. This is the kind of training that I've been trying to give you all, because I've been there. And I mean, like, as a woman, as a fencer, as a writer, right? That elf queen attack is intense.
There was a lot going on there. There's a lot going on in that scene you just read.
Yeah. So it's, this is the ablation of Margaret's soul continued. It's like just every special effect you've ever. Nobody's ever made an effective Pratchett movie, as far as I consider. But his writing is just gorgeous, right? And it's like the ablation of Margaret Garlick roared on, tearing the strata of her soul, exposing the core. And there's like, Margaret was the only one who could defeat the glamour.
That's interesting. That's interesting. She was the only one who could defeat the glamour because she had kind of been dismissed a lot by the other two witches, right?
Somewhat, although that's what's interesting, right? And I do think sort of training women, this is a challenge, right? Because if we don't go there, if we don't like actually have to deal with the darkness, which is in Pratchett stories what the witches deal with, right? They're at birth and death. I mean, Granny plays chess with death, or Cripple Mr. Onion. It's like there's a lot of ways in which the witches are showing you what Granny is headology, right? They understand the psychological battles, whereas the wizards have their hierarchy. They have their hierarchy at the university in the city, and their hierarchy, again, Pratchett got this right. Witches coven structure, but not like the men's. The men's hierarchy, got Art Chancellor Rid Cully at the top, who is the wizard who never caught Granny when they were younger. So, she didn't get married to the head wizard because she's still a virgin, so they can like capture their unicorn and not. Anyway, Rid Cully, the wizards are all in the story because they've come for the wedding, right? The wizards are, they have competitive hierarchy, and in previous times they always have to worry about getting killed constantly because the only way up the ladder of the wizards was through another wizard. Right? So exactly the pyramid, right, of the male hierarchy. But then the women's obviously has something, right? There's other stories. I think there's some nice stories about Granny being challenged by a younger wizard. It actually is still in the same book, Lords and Ladies. That Granny is challenged by another of the younger women, who has her own little coven that she's set up. And she knows that she needs to be top witch, and so she proposes a contest staring at the sun. And Granny, Nanny is worried about Granny. They call them Esme and Geetha, right? Esme is Granny and Geetha's nanny. Geetha's worried about Esme because she's not sure that Granny can stare at the sun as long as the other girl can. And they've made this protective circle, right, of magic. So, you know, the power of the magic is contained while the witches are staring at the sun, right? Dual battle of the witches. And for no reason whatsoever, one of Granny's grandsons, terribly sticky, wanders into the circle and therefore is in danger. Who wins?
Well, the younger witch.
Because she holds steady staring at the sun, because that was competition.
Yeah, because I mean she had to protect her grandson, right?
No, Granny.
I'm just guessing.
No, the younger woman keeps staring at the sun. Granny stops. She's the virgin who has no children, right? She stops, picks up Pusey covered in stickiness, takes him out, puts him outside of the circle, and goes back to staring. Who wins?
My guess would be the person who. Oh well, no, I've never read the story. So
well, I told you enough to figure out who wins, right? Who just won in that engagement? The one who kept staring at the sun and kept to the rules of the game, or the one who stopped and saved the child?
I would have guessed the younger one who kept staring at the sun, but I don't know.
See, this is the way women fight. Right? And that's the thing. It's like the crowd decides because of the way they see the two women behave. And one, they're terrified of Granny. None of them like her, right? But they see her take care of the child, and they see I can't remember her name, the girl in the fancy occult jewelry in the black, Diamante.
Yeah.
They see her being more worried about her own status.
Yeah, they see blind ambition.
Granny wins. Granny always wins.
Yeah, interesting.
Because Granny understands people in their heads and takes care of them. She didn't like him much.
Perfect.
But she
does it anyway.
But she.
I don't know. Is that superior though? Right?
Yes.
Christ said, "Love your enemies." Right? Anybody can love their family members, and people it's easy to love. But what about loving your enemies?
Right. Yeah. Well, and Granny, the thing is, she's the stereotypical witch. They're all stereotypical witches in certain ways, but she's the one that lives in the cottage in the woods, and people are afraid. She does tricks in some of them to make doors seem to open and stuff, and know things before people show up. Because guess what? She pays attention, right? She's always paying attention, and this is the witches know their neighborhood. And they each have their own neighborhood. Is this sounding familiar yet?
Yeah.
They each know their own neighborhood, and they each take care of the people in their neighborhood. And the people know that they can come to them for help. When, some of the most poignant ones are things like when Granny is at a difficult birth, right? And there's a cow and the woman who's giving birth, and Death shows up. And Death in the Discworld is a skeleton with a cloak and a scythe and stuff. And Granny plays the card game with him, and it's a little unclear whether Death, like, who tricks whom in it. And he's like, I'll play for one soul, right? And she gets to choose.
Ooh, that's dark.
Yeah. Again, what does she choose?
Oh, I don't know.
She
chooses the child?
No, she chooses the wife.
No, she chooses the life for.
And they bury the baby. And but the question is, would you put it to the husband? And Nanny says, why would you be so cruel?
Oh, yeah. That would be cruel.
She takes it all. And they hate her.
They hate her.
And fear her.
Taking the burden off of him.
No. In that she doesn't tell them what happened.
Mm.
She says, I came for one soul. You pick. And she has to choose.
Mm.
Women, we are making these decisions all the time. And Granny makes that one for him. So that he has his wife. Sorry, I'm really crying.
I know.
My makeup's going. Right. This is the, like, women's world are these decisions. And these battles. And this hierarchy. Between life and death. And your choice, women. You choose. Does the baby live or die? You choose. I think one of the best... So we started compiling characteristics of what makes women in the hierarchy of women. It's not having your makeup, not smudged. Things that women consider in the hierarchy among other women. It's the one we're going to get to in the long run. It's the sharing of resources and like why you need to be inside and outside because it's so powerful, right? But one of the men was saying suffering. And I'm like, Our Lady again?
Yeah.
Standing there suffering. It's like, it's a huge part of the mystery of why she's who she is. It's not just that she gets to be the top pretty one.
Yeah.
She stands under the cross with him.
When all but one of the men were in hiding. Yeah.
Yep. And the man who was saying this was saying, it was like, when we've been through giving birth, when we've carried the death of a spouse, when you've carried the death of somebody, cared for them, Granny is here when they die. They're just getting to be beautiful.
Mm.
You may not want to be a queen, but you get to be a witch. Now, what's interesting, Margaret, she does because the queens, all right. So we've got bees here. The elf queen. Elves swarm, right, and they swarm into the town, into Lanker. They swarm into the kingdom. They kill and stab. And one of the things, Margaret, she's moved into the castle to prep for the wedding, having thrown all of her occult jewelry in the river. And one of the things she's gonna learn queening, right? Which includes going around in the gardens, right, and meeting the beekeeper, whose name I'm forgetting. Hodges Arg is the falconer, so I can't remember what the beekeeper's name is. And Margaret, in wanting to be queen, is going around and talking to him and saying, "Oh, it must be very nice, taking care of the bees. It must be very peaceful." They're bees. Now, fun fact: in the Middle Ages, when we get a lot of our animal analogies, right? It's like everybody loves using animal analogies to talk about wolf packs and alpha males and wolf packs and stuff like that. In the Middle Ages, when they talked about bees, they thought they had kings.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They don't. They've got queens. And the queens, and then the beekeeper who's explaining all this to Margaret says, well, she's like, what makes a queen? And he says, well, it's very interesting. So you have all of these, the queens are all, the bees are all related to each other because they all come from the same mother, the queen, right? But what they become depends on what kind of food they're fed in the hive, right? In the cells, right? And there's the drones who are the male bees, right? And the workers who are all female, no hierarchy, except for all the industries in the Industrial Revolution that were in fact taken over from women's work, which were textile, and therefore, yes, guess what industry is in fact female in its hierarchy? Because they're all textile workers, just like the bees, right? So the bees.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah, I know. We match the natural world. The worker bees are all female, but there's only one queen, right? And so it's like, where do you get another one?
Where do you get another one?
Where, in fact,
you have to make one.
You have to make one. How do you make a queen?
Feed her royal jelly?
Yes, You feed one of the workers royal jelly, and that makes another queen, right? But there can't be two queens in the hive. So what happens? And then Margaret's horrified to learn this, but you find that this becomes an inspiration later, right? Stab back, right? And then she's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought it was nice."
Yeah.
I thought beekeeping would be calm and sweet, right? And it's like, no, in fact, they fight, right? And so the beekeeper, having explained this to her, when you get it, right? When she goes and and she doesn't actually kill the elf queen, she just says, "Leave." Right? Take your swarm and go. That Margaret has to fight the other queen to establish her home and save it from the invasion of the second hive. Which explains Heather's beautifully. Or something, right? It's like, what's interesting, and like Veronica by the end of it is like beat up, right? She's had to in the last scene when middle Heather meets Veronica coming back from Christian Slater, JD, having blown himself up, and she's like, you look like, where have you been? You look like hell. And she's like, where have you been? And she's like, I just got back, right? She's having to fight JD because this is written by a man, but and then she takes Heather's scrunchie and puts it on and says, there's a new sheriff in town.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then the fat girl who they've been mocking and who's tried to commit suicide, Betty Sue, Veronica goes up to and says, how about you come over and we have popcorn and movies and there, the really sweet little thing where the she's in the mobility scooter because she's tried to kill herself, and she's like spinning around her. It's like, yes, that's how you create a new queen. What did she do?
That was the only bright part of that movie. I did not like the movie at all.
Well, but she transforms the whole dynamic, right? It's like Heather as...
You hope.
Go ahead.
So just say you hope. I mean, the movie ends there, so I guess it does end on hope, right? But I mean, they did kill the other Heather, didn't they?
Well, JD did.
JD did. She didn't know he was going to do that, right? It's been a long time since, and then she gets shocked and says, "Oh, he's got to go."
Right. So he turns into a bad queen in effect in this setup, right? Or she has to duel him. I mean, it's a mix. The story's mixed because I think it's a man's version of these things, but
it's very mixed, male and female. I think, the way you describe it, such,
and this we've talked about with the Barbie, right? It's like you can be the evil queen, like the elf queen, and destroy other people with your knowledge of their insights and their secrets and their shames, because that's how the elf queen does it. And so, yes, in fact, we can. That's why I said it. It's like, we can tell you how the the women's ranking works, but the woman at the top will have to kill you. Unless she's Mary.
Like JD.
Right, but it's like the we know what the mechanism is, and Pratchett brilliantly describes it in these witches relationships, right? And that Veronica, who's named appropriately for the veil of Christ, right? The cloth that's impressed on Christ's face when he's on the way to the cross, and it takes his image, right? So Veronica is the true image. She's the actual reflection of Christ. And
nice.
In taking on that reflection of Christ, she goes to hell and back. She harrows hell. She comes back. Oh my God, I'm crying again. Oh God. And takes care of everyone.
Yeah, she did.
So, having been to hell and back, I'm going to read your names.
That sounded ominous, but go on.
Well, it's like we go into these networks and social medias, and I've done a lot of blogging on the adventures that Kiltz and I had in Milo's chat. Starting with, everyone will appreciate this, starting with the very first episode in the Milo Chat Chronicles, which was the story of Moo, which was when Milo kicked all the girls out of the chat for a day because the women were taking it over, and he's like, we have to have Tuesdays free of women. It's Sharia Tuesday. You all have to go away. Right. We were banned. I can't remember exactly the mechanism of it, but we could still see the chat. So we weren't actually kicked out of it completely, but we could watch it, and we were sort of curious about what the men were going to be talking about. And one of them was a cow dairy farmer, veterinarian. And so they started talking about cows. And so I had this idea. It's like, oh, when we come back in, because we played along, it's like we were perfectly happy with the game, right? Because of course the boys needed their time. That was fine, right? We said, okay, when we come back in, we will moo at them. And then we decided to change all of our avatars so we were cows. And then we come in and go moo, moo, moo. And the cow, the dairy farmer, loved it, right? He's like, oh my gosh, there's cows. This is great, right? and we were like moo, moo, moo. However, in the women's chat, which Kiltz had set up, right? This is like deep backstory for you guys. There was a debate, which then bled back out into the general public, and therefore I wrote about in the Game of Moo, about whether we were being mean by deciding to do this moo game.
Mean?
And there was it blew up, and people left, and there were animosities that continued for years over.
That's crazy.
Because the worry was that this was being mean. And so we had this huge debate about what the best response for fun was, and it's like, and one of the women was saying, no, you are, by mooing at them and refusing to talk to them until they, I can't remember what the category, the trigger would be to like start talking again instead of just mooing. But they said that was mean because it's like excluding them, and we're like, we're mooing.
Gosh almighty. So it's just reminding me of like every social justice warrior cancel campaign ever. It's just, it's the same dynamic.
Well, yes. And this is therefore, and when Vox wrote about social justice warriors always lie, he's mainly writing about these kind of emotional manipulations.
Yeah. This is why, social media is very feminine.
Yes.
That way.
Yes. Yeah. You get these swarms. We know the swarm effect. You get the elf queen destroy your soul exercise, and the advice that Vox gave on how to fight them, don't apologize, keep records, don't quit, all of that, it applies in fighting this kind of battle. Which is ironic, since Vox says he doesn't understand women. Yes, you do. You really
Yeah.
do. In the great play that we had in Social Galactic, we had many conversations. I am now much more familiar with the members of that community. Having left it alone as mainly a men's group, now I know there are women in it, and some really brilliant women who I'm very happy to be in conversation with now, and many gallant, chivalrous men who are now in conversation. We invite you, if you are watching on unauthorized on YouTube, to join us in my Telegram chat, the Dragon Common Room. If you go to the Fancy Bear channel and knock, I can let you in, as it were. Otherwise, I can put a link up and you can come in and join us in our conversation there. And I'm very, very grateful for everyone who participated in my trolling you, and answering my questions and helping us hopefully get to a point where we understood what you didn't understand that we weren't saying, because we weren't saying it and we hadn't described it clearly, and we are trying. But it's headology, it's the witch level. Learn everybody's name, know everybody in your village, and take care of them when they're at border situations.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I begin the reading of the names? It may take a little bit.
Yeah,
They're in the
ahead.
order that I went backwards in the comments, because I can do that, because I do this kind of thing. I'm a woman. So it's not in any particular order, except for the last comments were most recent. Mars Plum, Cactus Eater Bear, Steve, Raymond Solar, Pureblood Liberty Duty Honor, Mr. Berenstain, Valtandor, Dalmusrat, Teleros, Starboard, Zachlog, Hans Etherzar, Nibmeister, Annie, Uncle John's Band, Contrapuntal Man, Raymond Solar, Sir Hamster, God's Little Battering Ram, Cat, VA Boston, Spectator, Silent Draco, Codex, Acabear, Chip, Isolation, Billy, Darth McKee, Jim B.S. Wu, Vengeful Fairy, Magnus Casus, Phalus Concolor, Pelican, Tom Moniker, Possum, Get Along Home, Uncouth Barbarian, Joe Katzman, Rake Sawyer, JGB, A Rogue Wave, AA Rabbit, Woolwich, SHK, Ski Bear, Scuzzaman, Gorm, Oakthorn, Fire Drake, Sheffy, Vox Day, Robert D. Wood, Shin of the South, Notelrack, Ominous, Tom, Wolf Eisenbrand, Skarn, P, John Bradley, J.G. Michael, Two-Fisted Tails, Roscoe, Nitar and Vike, Poster Child, Gecko, Ingot, B of E, Manual, Divine Judgment Bear, Lacey Fairchild, ETL, Not Your Pal Friend, Blue, or BHU, my handwriting, I'm apologizing, Shadow Hand, Mike Deplorable Reprehensible, Pelican, Scotch Girl, Man McManahan, Honey Badger, John Was Not Born Yesterday, Corsair, Pistolaro, Peanut Butter Churn, West, Jerry, Jose Miguel, Felix, Kontiki, Star Tripper, Frankenstein's Monster, Tommy, Subutai, Border Collie Mom, Eddie, Grid Hunter, Joe Katzman, QBG, Whiskey 6, Jerry, MJ, Original H, 3 of 3 Bookworm, Jose, Katerian, Spectator, Clips, Blitzkrieg Bear, Ski Bear, Blue, Christo Bear, Stevenson, Big Ride 2X, ZX, Nunn, Camo, Michael, WT, Joe Regular, Farmer K, Wasatchmo, Pyro, Conceiser Bear, Second Time Bear, Anna, DDA, Kel Bear, Lost Year, Dum Rawl, Dad of 13, Odie Piker, Jordaman, Night Watchman Bear, Deplora Bear, Robert D. Wood, Jeroth, DJ random.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, eh?
That's fantastic. That is fantastic that so many people were engaged in that. It's I'm because we're trying to figure this out to get comments on that.
It was wonderful, right? I haven't slept for days. Right? I do.
Too much going on up here.
Special shout out to Billy for inquiring whether I had, right? And to everyone who's joined in the Telegram conversation now. Well, I'll try to restrain myself from playing with you guys too much in Social Galactic. And I mean, in this way in particular, right? It was great, right? And the women figure stuff out by testing it, right? It's like, this is what you guys, the men, pressure themselves in test system and, fail test and things like that. So do we. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what I was doing in the Social Galactic, these 6 days, we remade the world in 6 days. Yes, we're that good. Was I was fainting and I was trying to figure out what is it that I haven't answered for you. If I still haven't, please in the comments, right? And we don't have video comments on unauthorized, but if you're, YouTube comments or in Social Galactic, I always post links to these videos there. We learn by trying to figure out what the connections and relationships are. And in return, we'll go to hell for you.
Yeah.
So, we've had a few comments, not very many. I think they're worn out.
It's a lot to think about. It's a lot of detail.
Yeah, and I realize it's really good that we record because who can remember all of this? Oh wait, women, right?
Yeah.
And this is
we have recorders in our heads. Yeah.
I was saying there's that great meme which I could have used of the video cameras, right? And it's like first world CT closed caption television, right? Eastern European, it's the grannies behind the lace curtains, right?
Yeah.
So you think about what women did was we actually create the stability of everything. We're the spies that watch and know. And I've also, one of the things that I started to realize is like, when did England develop its like great spy network? Oh, right. Under its queens. Right.
Yeah.
To know who needs what when, so that we're there when you ask. And I do recognize that one of the things that the women in my academic community were frustrated with me with was I had not been participating in the things that they were. And so when I said something and it triggered all of this stuff, it was like, danger, 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 disruption, disruption, disruption. And they were right in the logic of this system to react the way they did. I hadn't seen that until actually just this week, right? It's like, to understand why women's networks have such a powerful alarm, danger, 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 danger. It's because literally life and death is at stake.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got Mel crying, so that's good.
Aww.
Silent Draco's essay, what are women's missions or purposes in life? We should continue with that. And what are the means or methods used to achieve those purposes? Mainly keeping children alive, right? It's baseline, right? And it does help, as you were saying at the beginning, to understand that some of the ways that we are like so in need of keeping things stable is we've got to protect the toddlers.
Yes.
Yeah.
From themselves too. That's the thing. They're constantly getting themselves into trouble. So it's themselves and externals that might be endangering them. So we're looking in multiple directions at all times for multiple people at all times.
Yes. And one of the things I hope we continue to talk about is took the time to describe the Dantean hierarchy and the angels and the pyramid, and this, it's like these have got to be interlocking structures in some way, right? The masculine and feminine need each other. They don't work by themselves. The feminine hierarchy all by itself gets toxic. The masculine hierarchy, well, we're not there, so we don't know you guys. We hope you're nice to each other, right? We get that the feminine hierarchy without the production. Val Tondor has been making some really great comments and thoughts about, and Kat, shout out to you guys. And also I did start making like asterisks, and then I realized Mars Plum and Teleros and Uncle John's Band, God's Little Battering Ram, Cat, Border Collie Mom. There have been a lot of really good pieces. Codex, Darth Mackey, Tom Moniker, Uncouth Barbarian, JGB. Bringing in more elements, which is the way women work, right? It's like, I need a little piece here, I need a little piece here, like we're quilting, right?
Yes, and perfect.
We will put the quilt together and there will be a pattern, but we've got to get the pieces together first. And if you've been puzzled about what it is we're up to, that's part of the process of putting the pieces together, trying to figure them out.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That was great. Oh my gosh. I didn't think I would cry that much. I think I would, well, maybe I would. No. I was a little worried. Yeah. It's a tough topic. It's a very,
it is.
Yeah.
It is a tough topic because, well, yeah, I mean, girls are mean, and I think we're mean to ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And we expect a lot of ourselves, and we end up expecting a lot of other people too. But there's such a delicate social rules being played constantly amongst the women. It gets frustrating very easily, and sometimes we do cry a lot because that's just frustration tears. A lot of the times it can be sadness too, but a lot of times it's a pressure valve, because there's so much going on in our heads all the time. Like when I mentioned, watching the Barbie movie with my husband didn't understand that scene at all.
Right.
America, right? And I was like, well, I get it. It's absolutely true. It happens all the time. And I don't think he could comprehend that. I don't think men can comprehend that a lot, because it's like that popular meme that's going around, the woman and the man are lying side by side. She says, I bet he's thinking of another woman.
Yeah.
Right? And what he's actually thinking of, it's the Roman Empire or something completely irrelevant to their lives.
Right.
That's a perfect example of what's going on. We're constantly looking out for what's going on. Right. We have to know things constantly. And in the absence of something going on, we might just, think a little too much about it in our heads, because there has to be something. What am I missing? I have to constantly, what am I missing?
Right. Well, and the thing is, when we talk about things, I mean, my poor students, right? I'm constantly, it's like, I've started using that history as a hobby conspiracy guy from Sunny in Philadelphia. It's like, this is what my life is like, right? It's always fun. It's like this over there and this fits over. No, that's wrong. No, redraw that one. And because the thing is, I do think, and I think we're going to get to this, I do think women actually create the most stable hierarchies, because, and it turns into, quote, the oppressiveness of society, because we're like so, hardwired, whatever. We're so, it's so important to keep everything where we know it is, right? It's like, move that, don't move that. I know where that is, right? It's like the woman in her house knows where everything is. When the husband's like, where's the milk? And you're like, it's behind that, right? You know where everything is, because you're constantly keeping all of these things in place, because you need to know absolutely everything all the time, which I think actually, so then what, obviously I think what the men see is the rupture of that otherwise stable thing, which is also when I was talking to my students about John Stuart Mill's on Liberty this week, saying that's what people feel is the oppressiveness of opinion in our societies. The oppressiveness
of opinion.
The elf queen. The elf queen is at a different level of that. That's the sort of we need to figure that one out, right? But the oppressiveness of this web structure that everybody knows what everybody else is thinking, that's the village, you know, created by the women's network of knowledge of everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so we hope we've answered your questions. Are women crazy? Maybe. Are they incapable of forming stable hierarchies? Best start believing in feminine hierarchies, Miss Taylor. You're in one. That works with Taylor Swift too, but it also works with Harriet Taylor, John Stuart Mill's wife. She didn't like being in it either. She wanted out, but we play incredibly well together, which is why we are so ruthless when we don't, which is what you see when that erupts. And it's so much more than a pecking order, guys. It's a web.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's a good way. Yeah. It's an interconnected web.
Okay, then. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for everyone still watching. And we hope those of you watching this recorded, if you have questions, post them where I've suggested. Please subscribe. If you're not on unauthorized, my subscription is Logos and Tolkien, which will help us with our art and our continuing projects with the poetry. And we're very happy to be here with you. It's a great adventure.
Yep. So
thank you for joining us. And thank you, Casey, for being my wingman today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It was good having good having someone who knew all of the stuff that was going on in Social Galactic. That you know, you and I have been together for a long time too, like through all of the poems. So it's not news, but it was nice. It was very nice to be able to work together in this particular story. So,
yep.
Thanks everyone. Bye. Good night.